I have a fridge over there in the office full of peptides, small molecules, proteins that I will inject myself with. If you go to my home, I've got 3 drawers with maybe 100 bottles of supplements. Right, I'll take anywhere from 10 to probably 70 supplements a day.
So you think of it as a way of maximizing your health as you go through this extraordinarily difficult journey.
He calls it exogenous support. In a world where companies move faster than the humans running them, some founders are finding new ways to push the limits. For Max, that means turning his body into part of the experiment.
My lifestyle's working against me, the hours I work against me, stress works against me. So how can I lean a little bit on exogenous support because of how extreme the rest of my life is?
At 25, Max Marchione has raised over $30 million to build one of the fastest growing health tech companies in Silicon Valley. His company, Superpower, is trying to bring longevity and precision medicine to everybody, not just the elite.
I know Kung Fu.
Speed matters far more than stealth, or execution matters far more than ideas.
Before Superpower, Max was a law student who ranked first in his class until he started to rethink everything. He dropped out, obsessed over performance, and started building toward a new kind of healthcare.
There's only one framework I think about in the context of company growing, and it's this idea of velocity. It's a vector with direction and magnitude. Right? The magnitude of the vector is speed. It is iterating and testing and being in the arena. It's very hard to get to quality by sitting there and thinking and constantly delaying things.
Inside Superpower, that obsession with speed became culture.
Like, people are in here at 3 a.m. on a Saturday night, DJing and having fun, and someone's off in the corner coding, right? It's a 150,000 person waitlist in 6 months. Having a waitlist that was like self-growing, and as a result, we grew that pretty quickly, and a waitlist is revenue, right? We basically had revenue before we launched the company. I dislike investors who are like, so you're gonna sell in 6 years? I'm like, yeah. And if we sell in 6 years, we've probably failed. Like,
Yeah, because this is a long hold, right?
yeah, if we succeed, we're still doing this in 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
If we sell for $1 billion in 3, 4 years, we have failed. It's not what we set out to do.
When speed becomes a mission, you forget what normal feels like. Max Marchione is living proof that obsession takes you further, but not for free. This is episode 5 of Speed.
Max, it's awesome to be with you and have you on Speed. Thank you so much for taking the time. We haven't launched publicly about what format is yet, but we wanted to start talking about some of the things that we were really passionate about, right? Companies that are building really quickly, companies that are doing that at an extraordinarily high quality, companies that are managing somehow in all of that to stay close to their customers as they scale. And I think that Superpower is a really great example of all of those things. As a co-founder of Superpower, you've already achieved a lot, right? You went from 0 to 150,000 wait lists in like 6 months. You have acquired companies before your Series A. Every launch you do gets millions of impressions, and I wanna dig into all of that. But first, maybe we could start a little bit with you, right? You've been very public about the fact that you're building a $100 billion business, right? As a founder, I know the toll that that's gonna take on your health. How do you think about that, and how do you balance those two things?
I think there's a Goldilocks zone for health. I think that if I'm too unhealthy, the company suffers and the mission suffers, and we can actually do less. And then if I'm too healthy, all I do is health, and I don't have time for the company anymore, right? I know a lot of people who are very healthy who don't work and surf every day and spend 3 hours in the sauna. Like, no shit, you're gonna be healthy if that's all you do.
Yeah.
So there's a Goldilocks zone, and I think a lot about finding that Goldilocks zone. The other thing I think a lot about is health as a tool for human performance, right? How can health actually increase the amount I can get done to make it easier to achieve the long-term mission? So if you go to my home, I've got 3 drawers with maybe 100 bottles of supplements, right? I'll take anywhere from 10 to probably 70 supplements a day. I have a fridge over there in the office full of peptides, small molecules, proteins that I will inject myself with, and other team members will inject themselves with the goal of optimizing health and increasing performance. So yes, will my health suffer? But at the same time, I will do what I can with health to make sure it actually makes achieving the mission easier.
So you think of it as a way of maximizing your health as you go through this extraordinarily difficult journey?
Yeah, it's just like my lifestyle's working against me, the hours I work against me, stress works against me, time to focus on health works against me. So given all of these external factors, how can I lean a little bit on exogenous support or compounds because of how extreme the rest of my life is? If the rest of your life is amazing, you probably don't need any exogenous support. If the rest of your life is chaotic, the way mine is, exogenous support makes it easier to still be healthy.
You've been talking a lot about the intensity with which you guys are building here, right? Beds in the office, people working, 6-7 days a week, nonstop. What does that level of intensity do for the speed at which you can move? Like, how do you think that actually, manifests itself?
Speed is really contagious. The second speed starts going down, it doesn't go down a little bit, it goes down a lot. And the second speed goes up, everyone feels like we're working on a sports team, we're working towards something, it becomes more fun. Ironically, the time when the team is having the most fun is often the time when they're working the hardest. One of the things I believe is that speed matters far more than stealth, or execution matters far more than ideas. And the reasoning for this is simple. It's very easy to come up with a good idea. ChatGPT can come up with a good idea. You find good ideas everywhere. The thing that's really hard is like great execution. You see very few companies execute very well. Let's look at a company with like an average idea and great execution, Ramp, right? Everyone has known about this idea for decades, and yet Ramp comes along and becomes a $22 billion company in 6 years. Why? Simple execution and speed. So I think a lot about speed is probably the number one most important thing that we do as a company.
How do you think of that then relative to the innovation that is required in your space, right? Like if you think that the age-old way of solving poor health has been a reactive way of just going to the doctor when you're sick or waiting too long and ending up in the ER, right? So there is a lot of innovation in what you're doing. That takes time. So how do you balance that, or how do you think through that?
There's only one framework I think about in the context of company building, and it's this idea of velocity. And if you look at what velocity is, it's a vector with direction and magnitude, right? The magnitude of the vector is speed, how fast you move, and the direction of the vector is whether you're pointed in the right direction and whether you're focused on the right things. And what you're kind of getting at here is innovation requires direction. Now, there's two ways to get direction. One is to sit there twiddling your thumbs, thinking about things. Yeah. The other is to move really quickly and assume that action produces information. So in certain respects, speed actually allows you to arrive at the better direction. It's not the only thing. You still need to be strategic, you need to think deeply, you may need to make the right decisions. But it tends to be easier to do that when you have the data that comes from taking action rather than if you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs.
This sounds like you're going to put the team through a pace and a standard that most companies don't adhere to, right? And that then becomes a very difficult thing to screen for in the people. So I'm sure there've been people that have come and gone on your team that just couldn't keep up, right? How do you manage that? How do you try to sort of screen for that in the people that you have, and how quickly do you move people out that can't keep pace?
We try to find people who have done who have always been the best in the world at anything they've done and anything they've set their mind to. And typically, if someone's done that before with everything they've done, they're very hardworking and they're very smart. So that's important. We're quite explicit. We tell people before they join, here's the expectation. Mm-hmm. This is the culture. This is how we work. And it's going to be really fun. Like people are in here at 3 a.m. on a Saturday night, DJing and having fun, and someone's off in the corner coding, right?
Yeah.
And people are having fun, but that's the nature of the environment. A lot of the team, when they hear that, end up being young, partially because you just have this extra fervor and energy a lot of the time to commit to something like that when it's the expectation. And then to the other part of your question, we will move on from people quickly. Like typically we know within a week whether we want to work with someone. Often we'll contract to hire. So we'll say, let's start on a contract and then we'll see where we want to go. Other times we'll hire right away and we realize we made the wrong decision. It's not necessarily that the person's bad, but often it's that the person isn't right for the kind of culture that we have and for how hard it is going to be to achieve the mission.
So clearly a skill that you have developed / been born with has been engineering momentum. Do you recall a time in your life when you realized that was something that was deeply important to you and that you had a natural aptitude for?
I've always been just personally obsessed with productivity and speed. I always think about how I can do more per unit time. Part of why I use health to enhance capabilities because the idea is health allows you to do more per unit time. That said, the obsession with speed that we have today is a new phenomenon. I don't think I was like this before building the company. I think it's more that sitting in the weeds of the company, thinking about what's actually going to allow us to work as effectively as possible, really quickly realized that if we champion speed as a cultural principle, we get so much more done, right? I would contend that just about every single great company on earth, particularly in highly competitive markets, is one that obsesses over how much you get done per unit time. Elon is the classic example, right? There's all of these stories of someone going to Elon and saying, this is going to take us a year to do, 12 months. And Elon says, great, do it in a month. That's what he says. And when the person is forced to do it in a month, they typically find a way. I often think constraints breed creativity. And we'll try to do that within the company as much as possible. Someone might come to me and be like, so this is going to take 2 months. I'm like, great, let's do it in 2 weeks. Like, what would have to be true to do this in 2 weeks? Yeah. And the second you ask that question, assuming we have to do this in 2 weeks, assuming there's a gun to your head and this has to be done in 2 weeks, how would you do it? And there's nearly always a way, right? You do less, you focus more, you cut unnecessary requirements, you realize that you need fewer steps or less process, and you move faster. So we try to make speed this like cultural principle that pervades every single team.
Often where companies fall off on that is that they just start to do things of lesser quality, right? And there's loads of companies that are moving fast and they're just producing shit, right? And so the skill has to be speed plus quality. So to talk about a few of the things that clearly you guys have done extraordinarily well, right? I mentioned it at the top of the interview. You got from 0 to 150,000 waitlist signups in 6 months. Can you talk a little bit through like what were the tactics there that engineered that to happen, and how did you launch so quickly at such high quality to enable that?
So first on the quality point, a lot of people think that speed and quality are opposed. I contend they often go hand in hand because the most reliable way to get to quality is speed, right? Is iterating and testing and being in the arena. It's very hard to get to quality by sitting there and thinking and constantly delaying things. The second something is launched in the market, it creates a forcing function for speed as well. So I actually think quality and speed often go hand in hand. On how we built a 150,000 person waitlist in 6 months, the first thing was really strong brand foundations. Right from the start, we invested in a domain name, a set of beliefs, a beautiful visual identity, a viral website. So that was the first thing. The second thing is we would launch often. We would find something to announce, something to launch, and make a lot of noise around it. And when we launch, that means everyone announcing all at once, all at the same time, with PR, with a viral launch video, getting our friends to comment. It's possible to get several million eyeballs for free just by launching, right? If you were to buy several million eyeballs, that costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
On the wait list, when someone signed up, there was a thing that said you're number 5,000 on the wait list. Refer a friend and we'll push you up to this position. Yeah. So we had this viral referral metric as well that allowed us to like push people up the wait list for referring friends. The other thing we did is lots of viral drops. So we launched, for example, the world's healthiest hoodie. We said all clothing is toxic, it's harming health. Enter Superpower's world's healthiest hoodie, and we amplified that through creators. We did the same with like a baseball card biological age drop. We really invested in Twitter and LinkedIn. We brought in a lot of micro investors for like 1K checks, 5K checks, and said, we'll give you access to invest in Superpower if you amplify us on Twitter, etc. Yeah. So all of these things meant that we had this echo chamber of effect of appearing in lots of places, building virality, having a waitlist that was like self-growing. And as a result, we grew that pretty quickly, and a waitlist is revenue, right? So we basically had revenue before we launched the company.
One of the tactics you mentioned there, which I think is really interesting for other founders to learn about, is the roll up that you did, as you mentioned, right? Like a lot of micro checks that enable people to amplify that. This isn't something that's done very often, right? It tends to get a lot of pushback from larger investors. It creates for a complex cap table. What are some of the ways that you were able to handle some of those objections that you got from people, or if you got any at all?
We would just tell our investors why this helps the company. We'd be like, so part of the company strategy is to bring hundreds or dozens of people around the table who can amplify us, who can make introductions, who can open different doors. And that's what we said to our investors. And every round we did, we would carve out around 100 to 300K for these small checks. And what we also would do is between rounds, we would open up another couple 100K for these small checks. So every time I would meet someone who's helpful, I would say to them, do you want to put in $1,000, $5,000? We're happy to if you're down to help a little bit. And as a result, we have so many people helping us. What we would often do is make that as a little bit of a discount to the most recent capital raised. And I don't get why every single founder doesn't do this. It makes so much sense. It's pretty easy to do. You're always going to be meeting people anyway. To bring them into the company, it gives you a way to actually get closer with them. So that's one of the things we do.
It's a beautiful tactic. I saw your post on X where you were expressing frustration that people that had invested then go and work for a competitor and refuse to sell their shares on the other side. So obviously there's some risk involved, and that person's probably no longer receiving your investor updates. But it's an interesting tactic. Another thing that you touched on, which I think is really interesting, is encouraging everybody, or maybe forcing everybody across the team, to become a brand advocator in their own way.
I think that a lot of people have fear. So there's this idea of like, so many people I know want to create content. And it's like, they don't do it. I'm like, why aren't you doing it? And typically what I see is perfectionism. They're constantly obsessed with learning how to create content. And they keep putting false requirements and false things in the way of actually taking action. And the best formulation I've ever seen for how to create content is Mr. Beast's. He said in a podcast, if you want to be the next Mr. Beast, for the next 50 days, post one piece of content every single day. And I bet you of every single person who listened to that podcast, 0 did it. Maybe 1 did it, right? People just don't take action. People are very scared. So I actually think the right formulation for how to actually get people to create brands is just get them taking action, even imperfect action. And then you can iterate, then you can learn. The thing you were referring to is this memo we have internally called Becoming a Platform Brand. And we have this memo that says, typically at a company, what happens is you have the founders becoming brands. And we said, well, what if instead every single person at the company had the opportunity to become a brand? Now we don't have one personal brand as a pathway into the company. We have dozens. So we really encourage the team to do that. Again, it's hard, it takes time, but when people are passionate about it, we have seen that definitely help.
One other thing that I thought was interesting, just to round off the kind of tactics of combining speed and quality, was, you put out a back call a while ago to create the next Huberman or Adia, right? And that was something that you wanted to invest in and help create. So clearly the media creator angle is a big bet that you guys are taking. Where did that come from, and how did that come to be in your mind as so important as part of your strategy?
Content is so underpriced. And I think paid media, paid marketing is going to die. And I think the primary channel that's going to actually work is owned media, right? It's crazy how someone like Brian Johnson can get millions and millions of views every single week for free. And that requires investing in owned media. And typically what owned media looks like is someone who has become a brand. So we made this call for the next Huberman or Atia, someone who wants to be the next one of these people, to allow us to help them get there. And a lot of people are starting to realize that content is this important. I think that a lot of people talk about it, very few people take action. We want to take maximum action that actually recognizes the importance of owning media and owning content and actually being a brand. I think this theme we're going to see is Silicon Valley meets Hollywood, right? Silicon Valley technology, Hollywood media. And Andreessen is a canonical example of this, right? They're a media company as well as a venture firm. They're doubling down on media. A lot of their investments are in media. I think it's one of their partners is starting a Hollywood studio, right? Mark Andreessen was inspired by the CAA founder when starting the fund. And I think we're going to see this more and more. Media is distribution, LA is distribution, technology, and Silicon Valley are products.
Let's talk a little bit about your customers, right? When you think of, okay, Superpower's customers, who are they today, and how's that going to change into the future?
Yeah, so there's kind of 3 ways we think about this. Who do we want to be for? Who buys us the most? And who loves us the most? And they're actually all 3 different.
All different.
Okay. So the group that who we want to be for, right from the start, we said we want to make the best of healthcare accessible to everyone. That's what we said. We want to democratize access to the best of healthcare. And we continue to say that. We say we want to create a membership that the majority of Americans own. And we're really, really maniacally obsessed with that mission. Amazon did it, and the majority of Americans have an Amazon Prime membership. Apple has done it, the majority of Americans have an iPhone. Netflix, Spotify. It's like, how does Superpower become a membership? We're $16 a month, $199 a year, similar price to the majority of Americans own. That's what we anchor around. The group that loves us the most are women between the age of typically 32 and 47,
Okay.
around there.
What do you think is driving that?
I think that many of them are starting to notice the effects of aging, hormonal changes, weight gain, changes to aesthetic appearances, progesterone imbalances, metabolic health challenges, thyroid hormone imbalances, and many of them haven't actually tested their full body. And many of them are into holistic care or want to be into holistic care. So when a product like Superpower comes along that shows them what's going on at the root of all of these problems, they're starting to feel and notice, and then tells them how to actually take action, that's really powerful, right? 3 months after signing up or 3 weeks after signing up, they can feel like their life has changed. And that they evangelize, like when these women sign up, they evangelize us, they gift it to their friends, they talk about us. Group that has been the easiest to acquire is men between the age of 25 to 35.
Right.
Think people are quite interested in fitness and health and gym culture.
Are these people that typically need the lowest level of intervention?
Yeah, typically.
Okay.
Many of them want things on the optimization side,
Yeah.
or on like the performance and the prevention side, but they don't tend to have as many actual health problems going on. But they sign up, they're health curious, they're willing to experiment. They often have a wearable, an Apple Watch or a Ring or a Whoop band.
Right.
So they're the group that are the easiest to sign up.
Yeah.
I think that's going to change. I think it's going to shift in favor of that female demographic soon.
In order for you guys to achieve the mission that you're setting out to achieve, it will mean that you need to touch the people that are the least likely to be looking for this sort of thing, that require the highest level of intervention. How do you think about reaching those people? Is that something that you want to focus on now? Not at all. Is it the early adopters still? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, well, if I look at like what we do, we have a membership that's $16 a month, all data in one place, an annual physical, blood biomarker testing, 24/7 access to your medical team, 20% off everything in the ecosystem, 20% off supplements, 20% off pharmaceuticals, 20% off diagnostics. If you look at this group of people you're describing, many of them get an annual physical each year. It's a common experience for Americans. Many of them have a primary care doctor, right? And we can perform a lot of those functions. Many of them buy supplements or have bought a pharmaceutical or a GLP-1 or have bought some sort of diagnostic test before. Maybe not the diagnostic, but they've bought many of these things.
Yeah.
So if you look at all of the components of our membership and ecosystem, they're things that this group wants. The question is, how do we actually show them that Superpower provides this in an effective, cheap, cost-efficient way?
So it's more a change in their way of thinking about it as opposed to actually changing their behavior, because a lot of the time they're already doing it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the behaviors that someone can do within Superpower, they're already doing in a more expensive way.
Okay.
Right? And the question is, how do we educate people that Superpower can do this? How do we find different entry points into Superpower? Maybe what we say, we're not doing this, but maybe what we say is, oh, you're on a GLP-1 today with Hims. Hims targets many of those people.
Yeah.
We can do it at half the price. Do you want to come to Superpower? But you're going to get only maybe 10% of that discount. But if you're a member, then you get the full discount. Again, kind of akin to a Costco membership. So I think we just have to experiment with how we get someone in the ecosystem and how we market and message what we're doing, rather than fundamentally changing the nature of the product.
A lot of what you're describing there it's a B2C business, right? But I think B2B is also something that you're dedicating a lot of time and focus to. How do you think about building that side of the business that in its nature is just very different?
Yeah, B2B can be massive for us. There's lots of small businesses already who purchase Superpower. The average employer spends $5,000 to $15,000 a year, $5,000 to $15,000 a year on health insurance for a team member. Right, this is $199 extra. And what we're saying is we'll probably lower your health insurance bill.
Yeah.
Right, like if we do a good job of behavior change and education and early diagnostics,
Yeah.
that are very low cost, $199 a year, that could potentially save costs. So a lot of these factors open up B2B in a really unique way. My hypothesis is that B2B could become a bigger channel for us than direct to consumer.
That's interesting. but and the B2C may actually feed it in to the B2B, which is exciting. But it's a very different company inside to build, right? In everything from how you go to market, how you sell, how you support those sorts of customers. Is that a muscle you're starting to build now? And are you thinking about that in particular ways?
Yeah, we're starting to build it. So we have a marketing and growth team, and then we have a sales team.
Yeah.
And they're different teams.
They're just separate.
Yeah, it's hard to run them both at the same time, but they definitely support each other. For example, on the B2B side, we realized executive memberships are a big thing. Cool, okay, we can do an executive membership. And all of a sudden, now consumers can buy that as well. On the consumer side, we build this virality. We have people talking about what we're doing. That makes it far easier to meet the directors of benefits or the directors of health of these large companies and get them buying. So they do support each other in certain ways.
I think for us at Format, and you know this, right? I think one of the largest unsolved problems in software today remains that most people in most companies don't know what the fuck customers are saying, right? That to me just seems very evident that should have been solved, and it has not been solved yet. As you build for these quite diverse groups, as you say, you've got, your three sorts of groups in your B2C space and now your B2B space. How are you trying to stay close to customers as you're building the business? And how is that as a culture that you're trying to engender within the people that work at Superpower?
Yeah, so culturally, we have this idea of start with the user experience or start with the customer and then work backwards from there. Right? A lot of companies instead do the opposite. They start with the engineering requirements, the operations requirements, or the design requirements. Like, no, that will solve for that. But we have to start with what is the ideal experience for the customer. Now, part of working out the ideal experience is chatting with customers. And we do that in a couple of ways. One is I'm just friends with a lot of our customers. Like I probably message 5 of our customers a day, not in a structured way. They're just friends. Yeah. I sign all of my friends up. I'm constantly chatting with them. I'm sending user feedback all the time to the user feedback channel. Yeah. The second is we do some structured user interviews, typical like PM style. I think the challenge with those PM interviews I've seen is that we run the risk of anchoring too much towards what customers say rather than what they mean. Yeah. And particularly in health, there's often a big gap. So I think optimizing for understanding what they mean is really important. And I don't think we've done a necessarily good enough job of that. I think it's hard to, if you ask customers what they want, they also tell you they want everything. Yeah. They want us to build the whole health system. So, okay, well, how do we narrow down from that to a more granular and specific understanding of what they want?
That must require a lot of just intuition though, right? To be able to start to interpret that. Are there specific examples that you're thinking of as you explain that?
Yeah, so one example that comes to mind is if you ask, customers will say to us, I want a clinician, a human, a call to interpret my results. And they think they want this, but they don't. And the reason why they don't is as follows. The second we add a human in the loop, our price 3x's. Yeah. They don't want the price to 3x. Yeah. The second we add a human in the loop, most humans are not that good, particularly if you're only 3xing the price. If you want a good one, maybe you've got to 20x the price. So most are not that good. So maybe 1 in 5 have a great experience with their clinician. And the other 4 in 5, they didn't like their tone, they didn't like their look, they didn't like the recommendation they got. Yeah. The clinician arrived 3 minutes late to the call. There's all of these problems that all of a sudden happen. They couldn't cancel, they had a cancellation fee. So all of these problems that people just start complaining about. Yeah. So ironically, when we did the opposite of what customers said they wanted, and when we removed clinicians from the loop, which we actually officially did today. Today's day 1, but we kind of like, we removed calls from the loop around 6 months ago. When we removed synchronous calls, customer love went up, right? It was the opposite of what customers wanted, but customer love went up.
Interesting. And that's because actually what they need in that moment is they want analysis of their data, and they want an easy way to consume and digest that. That's actually what they're calling for in that moment.
Yeah, so a couple of things happened. One is it allowed us to double down on core product. Right now we had to actually explain the results more through the technology. 2 is we could reduce price. People loved it. They feel like they're getting way more bang for their buck. 3 is there were just fewer small errors and few issues. Like we just had fewer people complaining about not liking their clinician or 3 minutes late for a consult. So all those complaints just completely disappeared.
How do you think, two things you've mentioned, people's access to primary doctors, and then I want to come to pricing, but How do you think if Superpower achieves what it's going to achieve will be the role of the primary doctor for most Americans? How is that going to change?
I think primary care doctors will largely focus on things that require the physical world, the physical world
Examination.
vaccine,
Yeah.
a physical world examination, some sort of microsurgery. So that's where I think we go.
Yeah.
The urgent care will still exist. Broken bones will be examined. So things that require the physical world will be the domain of doctors. For at least a little while, chronic disease and chronic care management, particularly for older populations, will be the domain of doctors, but even that will be surpassed by AI quite soon.
You think the world just needs fewer doctors?
No, I think we do need more doctors, but I think that most doctors in their current form of work are going to be replaced by AI.
And pricing, right? You guys have just done a massive price cut. How is obviously that was received pretty warmly, right? How do you think about pricing as the business grows? Is it always an eye to the unit economics of what you're doing? Is it about land grabbing from competitors? Where are you thinking on this?
Yeah, two things for us with the price, maybe three things. One was philosophy. What are we actually trying to create as a company? And our philosophy is we want a membership the majority of people should own. Okay, well, that's not going to be a $499 a year membership. That's pretty expensive. $199 a year, well, that's akin to Netflix or Spotify or Amazon Prime. So that feels more right. The other part of the philosophy is the second we fix the constraint of where we want to be in the limit, the second we fix that today, we force ourselves to take actions, right? The actions that support that. Now we only have 199 to play with, so we have to take actions to support that.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, philosophy. The second thing is data, metrics. How does it modify CAC and LTV? And then the third thing is reflexivity with the market. Where is the market at? Where are competitors at? Where are customers at? What is the timing like in the market? I think if we did this when we launched, it wouldn't have made a ton of sense. Now, as the market's becoming mainstream and reaching more of the mass, lower prices really expand TAM. So the market is the third variable.
Do you think that pricing will continue to decrease over time?
It's not our plan, no.
Okay. Talk to me about what you're seeing in the kind of wider technology space. What are some of the other things that you're really excited about at the minute, and what are some of the things that you just can't believe that are still happening today?
I think there are like three themes that matter for the world in particular. One is human as machine. One is machine as human. This is AI, AGI, ASI. We've seen this play out. The next is human as machine, which is biotechnological enhancement. Things that actually modify the human body and allow for the progression of the human species. It's a new form of evolution. And then the third is world as machine. How do we actually interface with the real world and bring software and technology and hardware into the world, into our built environment? So I love those three themes. And the last one might look like robotics, it might look like labs, it might look like manufacturing, it might look like defense, it might look like nuclear power. So they're three that I find really interesting. More specifically on the second one, which is the closest to what Superpower is doing, human as machine. I love this theme of peptides right now. I think peptides are going to be miracle drugs.
Yeah.
I've already seen them change the lives of many of my friends, and I think they're going to change the lives of many others. So that's something I'm spending a bit of time digging into.
What do you think needs to change for that to become more mainstream?
Probably two things. One is they need to become legal.
Yeah.
That helps.
That would help.
I think two is the prices have to come down.
Okay.
And then I think three, ideally, it's not necessary, but ideally they can be delivered via a nasal spray or tablet rather than an injection.
For ease of access, for...
Yeah, injection's just a pain. Like
Yeah.
you're only going to get so many people injecting themselves multiple times a day.
Yeah. Though it's interesting, 1 in 8 Americans have tried a GLP-1, right? So it's not a barrier. How are you thinking about GLP-1s?
I'm very pro GLP-1s. Weight is probably the biggest cause of death in the country because of how it causes other things that cause death. And for the past 50 years, we have tried to help people lose weight, and weight has only gone up. Every year, Americans get fatter until last year. And the big change was the introduction of GLP-1s. Right, so I'm very pro GLP-1s. I'm even more pro GLP-3s, like retatrutide. I think that's the closest I've seen to a miracle drug.
Nice. You have raised significant money for your stage, right? This is going to be an enormously expensive endeavor. How do you think about the fundraising and funding of the superpower journey? Where's your head at on that right now?
Yeah, so our general view is we want to create a health system, right, where we have the highest quality, lowest
Yeah.
cost, most accessible care. We want to own full stack. We want to build into an AI doctor. That's going to cost billions of dollars, right? The true power of the business model, particularly on the cost side, doesn't get unlocked until we have scale. So we're going down the venture path, and that means raising money to allow us to invest into the future. And our general view is get to the next milestone to allow us to do that. So we'll be on this path for a while. It's kind of what it takes.
Yeah, and it'll also require careful selection of the people that you partner with on that journey, right? Because this is a big vision for people to buy into and ultimately fund.
Yep, 100%. We want to work with investors who believe in the vision. I dislike investors who are like, so you're going to sell in 6 years? I'm like,
Yeah.
and if we sell in 6 years, we've probably failed. Like,
Yeah, because this is a long hold, right?
yeah, if we succeed, we're still doing this in 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
If we sell for $1 billion in 3, 4 years, we have failed. It's not what we set out to do. Now, it's not the end of the world if we do that. I'll probably just start the same company again and do it again. But that's not what we set out to do.
So does that mean that the only path to liquidity and financial return is on the public markets?
I don't know. I don't care. It's just like, let's just build one of the more important companies on earth. And I think financials will sort themselves out if we do that.
Nice. Max, thank you so much. You're an absolute legend. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks you. Good chat.
Cheers.
Jump from that.